I can't go down anymore. But like he say, when they ask him for the Germonta fight, they don't wanna get credit for that fight. It's the same for me. I don't need to take that fight because then everybody's gonna say it's too small, it's too small, it's too small, and then, he need to enjoy his fight.
Okay,
He deserve it. He deserve it. I like Spence, but I like Spence and all the respect for him and everything. But I knew. I think is the type of fight Terence Crawford is fighter is different. 168, but like I say, like he say, nobody's gonna give me credit for that.
Canelo Alvarez has issued a brutal warning while reacting to the Terence Crawford versus Israil Madrimov fight. Crawford's return to the ring was set to be the marquee event for Riyadh season's debut boxing match beyond Saudi borders. Spearheading this groundbreaking event, Turki Al-Sheikh vows that Crawford's wait is over. Al-Sheikh told ESPN, "No one delivered a good fight for him. When you reach this time of age and glory, you pick your fights. If they give you the right money and the right fighters, you will take it. No one gave him that in the last 4 years." He further added, "And I think this is a shame, because we lost 4 years with one of the best talents in boxing we've seen in the last 20 years. We could have at least seen 4 or 5 more fights from him in the last 4 years." Crawford entered the ropes more than once in the previous year, which was 2019. In the last 4 years, he has engaged in 1 fight. One of boxing's persistent problems is inactivity, where fighters and promoters often reach a stalemate in negotiations. Boxers, alongside their managers, are just as culpable as the promoters in this dance of delays. However, it's the athletes who bear the brunt, unable to maintain peak performance as they age. Crawford wants so much money, so you have to really wait for the golden ticket to come around the carousel, Madrimov's promoter, Eddie Hearn, told ESPN on Wednesday as the fighters held a public workout at the Santa Monica Pier. And that's a problem with a lot of these top fighters. They're on so much money they could only fight once a year. Hearn added, "So sooner or later that's going to catch up with him. He's a big favorite in the fight this week, but you never know. All of a sudden you look a bit rusty. Maybe you get a little bit old. Maybe you go up one division too far, but he's a quality fighter. I mean, pound for pound, #1 in my opinion." With his performance against Spence, Crawford jumped to the top of ESPN's pound-for-pound rankings, looking better than he has in his storied career. After flooring Spence in round 2 with a straight left to the head and a right jab from a southpaw stance, the switch-hitting fighter established the tone. Crawford relentlessly pounded Spence, leaving both of his eyes battered and bruised. The 7th round saw Spence hit the canvas twice more, paving the way for the referee to call a halt 2 rounds later. With victory secured, Crawford began to size up his next challenge. Jermell Charlo, the reigning undisputed champion at 154 pounds, was at ringside to cheer on his training partner Spence. As the referee called the end of the match, Crawford cast a piercing stare through the ropes. Yet just 2 months later, Charlo faced a devastating defeat against Canelo at 168 pounds, diminishing the allure of a potential fight with Crawford. Charlo added, "I was prepared to do the rematch. I don't know if Spence was prepared to do the rematch. Like the contract stated, it didn't happen. It cost me months of my career, and I'm just happy to be getting back in the ring to display my talent, my skills." Despite this, Crawford still had enticing matchups awaiting him in the 154-pound division. Jaron Boots Ennis, Tim Tszyu, and Virgil Ortiz, each a formidable, undefeated power puncher, were on the horizon. After feeling the strain of the weight cut for the Spence fight more acutely than anticipated, Crawford had resolved to continue his career at junior middleweight. By the time of that bout, he was already aware it would be his final appearance at 147 pounds. Crawford said, "I was like, man, this is it. I can't make that weight like that anymore. It was kind of hard." On August 28th, Spence formally activated his rematch clause, having a 30-day window following the fight. In his post-fight interview, he expressed a desire for the rematch to be held at 154 pounds. According to the contract, the victor of the initial bout had the privilege to select the weight class for their second encounter. The agreement mandated that the rematch be held before the close of 2023. Yet, as the months slipped by, Crawford and his team made several unsuccessful attempts to set a date for the bout. On January 2nd, Harrison Whitman, attorney for Crawford, sent an email to Spence, who represents Heyman Boxing and works with Tom Brown, the promoter behind PBC events. Crawford was included in the email chain. The letter said that the rematch might be contractually postponed until February 24th, 2024, 210 days after the fight, in the event of an injury. Whitman wrote, "Mr. Crawford is a man of principle and remains open to a rematch with Mr. Spence. To that end, we need to know by the end of this week if Mr. Spence wants the rematch next, and if so, we need to discuss a structure for the rematch immediately." On January 5th, Brown relayed that Spence was eagerly anticipating the rematch. However, Spence would need to wait for medical clearance after undergoing a scheduled procedure the following week. Brown anticipated receiving an update from the doctor within 7 to 10 days. "Once we receive word, we'll let you know so we can can begin to plan the details for the rematch, Brown wrote. On January 9th, Spence shared a video on social media from a wheelchair, his right eye covered with a bandage, and disclosed that he had just undergone cataract surgery. With an estimated recovery period of around 8 weeks, it was clear he wouldn't be ready to begin training camp until long after the rematch clause had lapsed. Crawford needed to let go. Crawford said, "I was prepared to do the rematch. I don't know if Spence was prepared to do the rematch. Like the contract stated, it didn't happen. It cost me months of my career, and I'm just happy to be getting back in the ring to display my talent, my skills." As Crawford was finally ready to line up a bout beyond the Spence rematch, he found himself grappling with lost time and missed chances to step into the ring again in 2023. Fresh off a career-defining performance that not only earned him tens of millions, but also thrust him into the spotlight of mainstream sports conversation, Crawford was poised for another high-profile clash. There has never been a better opportunity for Crawford to fight twice in a single year. Crawford said, "It definitely was frustrating given the momentum that I had coming off of that fight. Everybody wanted to see me fight. Everybody wanted to see me back in the ring. And you hearing all the things that wasn't true about me and Spence, that I didn't want to fight him at 154, that I was scared, and these are the things that were frustrating. I was the one before trying to make the fight happen." He further added, "Turkey had hit me up and asked me if I wanted to do the rematch with Spence in Saudi Arabia, and I had hit Spence up to try to let him know that there was real money on the table for us to do the rematch in Saudi, but I never got a hold of him, so I just had to move on." The most anticipated showdown, however, is the clash between Canelo and Crawford. This epic battle promises to shatter the 1 million pay-per-view buys milestone and secure Crawford the highest earnings of his career. Alalshik is keen to bring this high-stakes event to the US, where its commercial potential is most promising. Alalshik said, "I will give Canelo what I think is a fair price. If he accepts it, he deals directly with me to finish the deal. I don't want anyone in the middle. I guaranteed Crawford a big fight. I want Canelo for Crawford, and Crawford wants Canelo. But if Canelo is crazy with his financial demands, I will still guarantee Crawford any fight he wants." Whether he likes it or not, Alalshik made a vow to Crawford that he won't go without a fight ever again, and it looks like the two will collaborate for the rest of his career. Alalshik informed ESPN of his eagerness to pair Crawford with Tszyu, the Australian standout and son of Hall of Famer Kostya Tszyu, if a bout with Canelo isn't feasible. Known for his relentless style, Tszyu, despite recent setbacks, faced his last defeat under challenging conditions. Tszyu lost a narrow split decision to Sebastian Fundora in their March title bout, a match marred by a severe cut on his forehead sustained early on. The relentless flow of blood into his eyes severely impaired his vision for the duration of the fight. Crawford is expected to produce at the greatest level, so it's not lost on him. Crawford said, "Why am I the perfect guy for Alalshik's first American fight? Obviously, he sees something in myself that he don't see in other fighters. He viewed me as one of the best fighters in America, as he should. I'm the #1 fighter in the world right now to date, so there's a lot of respect that comes with Turkey and myself. The possibility of facing Canelo is one of the numerous factors putting pressure on Crawford to win spectacularly." Crawford has captured titles in the lightweight, super lightweight, and welterweight divisions. Meanwhile, Alvarez, ranked as ESPN's #5 pound-for-pound boxer, reigns supreme at 168 pounds and has also held belts at 154, 160, and 175 pounds. Alvarez has shrugged off calls for a fight with Crawford, telling Box Azteca in February, "I have nothing to gain and everything to lose. If I beat him, everyone will say he was too small." In just one 154-pound bout, Crawford can't definitively show he's capable of competing against Alvarez, who fights 2 weight classes higher. However, a decisive stoppage victory in his junior middleweight debut would significantly bolster his reputation, demonstrating his power at a higher weight and elevating his status in the boxing world. Hearn said, "I've found that promotionally. Once you showcase his real personality, which is actually a great personality, he's a winner. He's funny. He's driven. He's a good family man. He should really be an American superstar, I think, because I think he's a generational great." He further added, "When you're talking about Sugar Ray Leonard and Marvelous Marvin Hagler, he's as good as those guys in my opinion. But people sort of gave up on him promotionally, and then I don't think he really is out there trying to drive his profile. I think he's just thinking, I'm 36 years old, I've got a few more big fights, keep paying me the money, and I'm happy being quiet in Omaha." If Canelo isn't keen, Crawford has other compelling matchups on the horizon. One option is Sebastian Fundora, the 6'5", 1/2 powerhouse, who shocked Tszyu in March to claim the junior middleweight crown. Another possibility is Ortiz, the knockout artist who is set to face Serhiy Bohachuk on August 10th. Additionally, Tszyu himself is slated to make his comeback on September 22nd in Australia. Fight fans have eagerly awaited the showdown between Philadelphia's own Boots Ennis and the welterweight title holder, who has long sought a bout with Crawford. Ennis, who ascended to champion status after Crawford was stripped of his IBF belt last November, is finally set to clash with his rival. It's advantageous to have choices, but Crawford is after a legacy, and the one and only boxing icon can provide him with what he wants. Furthermore, time is running out. I think that's the biggest fight in boxing. I think me and Canelo colliding is like Floyd Mayweather and Canelo at that level, Crawford said, referring to the 2013 matchup. He further added, I just feel I'm definitely not going to be doing this for much longer. I can assure you that, but I just felt like I never was able to display my true talent because I was held back. I wasn't able to fight the guys that I wanted to fight at the time that I wanted to fight them. If Crawford and Alalshik can keep it together, there won't be another year until Bud fights again, regardless of who he meets next. Power comes from money. There are now no two boxers demonstrating that point more clearly than Saul Canelo Alvarez and Turki Alalshik. When you can draw in a flood of cash, you wield significant influence. Alvarez is set to receive a $35 million guarantee for his bout against Edgar Berlanga, a plus 800 underdog who wouldn't be seen as a worthwhile gamble, even if his odds were plus 2,000.
Terence Crawford, his name keeps coming up, and I know he's a lot smaller than you. Is that a fight that you would ever consider under any circumstance?
You know, I always say if the fight make sense, why not? But he's not in the plan.
The financial draw of this matchup allows Canelo to take a fight he's nearly guaranteed to win, while still earning a payout that feels like a high-stakes extravaganza. That's power. When you have the ability to throw vast sums of money around, you wield significant influence. Alalshik, the chairman of Saudi Arabia's General Entertainment Authority, essentially the mastermind behind the burgeoning Riyadh season, carries around books filled with blank checks. The Saudi government, eager to fund Alalshik's grand visions, is prepared to overpay to secure the matches he wants. As a result, fighters, promoters, broadcasters, and media alike are scrambling to get on board with the lucrative opportunities he's offering. Alalshik has openly expressed his desire to offer one of those lucrative blank checks to Alvarez in an effort to set up a bout with Terence "Bud" Crawford, who has recently been named an ambassador for Riyadh season. While money is seemingly no concern for Alalshik, he's on a quest to determine the price that will persuade someone like Crawford, for whom financial considerations have become less of a necessity, to step into the ring. On their journey toward an alliance between the two most influential figures in boxing, an unexpected twist emerged. Instead of collaborating, they found themselves locked in a fierce rivalry. Alalshik, perhaps unwisely, ignited the conflict by taunting Alvarez, which may have been a misstep on his part. Thanks to substantial backing from Saudi investors, UFC 306 will be held at the Sphere in Las Vegas on September 14th, with Riyadh Season proudly sponsoring the high-profile mixed martial arts event. Meanwhile, just 2 miles away at the T-Mobile Arena, another pay-per-view clash will unfold as Alvarez takes on Berlanga on the same date. The extent of direct competition is still uncertain. Over the years, the figure 5% has been casually cited to indicate the overlap between boxing and MMA fans, though it lacks scientific backing. While this percentage might seem trivial at first glance, it's worth noting that if you're anticipating 500,000 PPV sales for an event, a 5% drop translates to a loss of 25,000 potential buyers. In the grand scheme, reducing your audience from 500,000 to 475,000 is far from negligible.
You know, like he say, if he beat Germonta, no, everybody's gonna say, yeah, it's too small,
Right.
and this and that. So it's the same thing. I respect Crawford. He's a good fighter, but we're not different.
On September 14th, UFC and PBC will clash as rivals. Alalshik, known for his restraint in taking jabs at boxers and avoiding the common pitfall of belittling those not in his camp, has built his reputation on a message of unity. His mission has been to leverage his country's resources to bridge gaps and facilitate significant matchups. However, he's now beginning to adopt the persona of a typical boxing promoter, casting Canelo as the adversary. "We will eat him," Alalshik said of Alvarez to ESPN. That would be an ordinary comment coming from the mouths of most promoters. Supporting the collapse of boxing's biggest star is a decision, especially coming from this promoter who some believe has the power to mend all of the sport's scars, particularly considering how vocally Alalshik has expressed his intention to persuade the flagship superstar to collaborate with him in the future and to put up a fight, something that Alvarez has up till now repeatedly dismissed. Meanwhile, Canelo needs to triumph over Berlanga on September 14th. Additionally, the outcome of Canelo versus Turkey needs to unfold in a manner that doesn't derail any ongoing negotiations. We may then talk about an Alvarez-Crawford fight. The two fighters are comparable in age, but in terms of motivation, they are in completely different stages of their careers. Crawford, entrenched in a fierce competition with Oleksandr Usyk and Naoya Inoue for the title of the world's best pound-for-pound fighter, remains driven by lofty goals. Although he's already achieved much and secured substantial earnings, he approaches his career with the mindset that his greatest achievements and the most significant financial rewards are still yet to come. He is fervently interested interested in fighting Canelo, since the 168-pound champion represents the greatest test for a man who is only recently increasing up to 154 pounds, as well as the opportunity to win 10 fights worth of purse money at once. Alvarez appears to have reached a stage in his career where expanding his legacy no longer serves as his main drive. In his recent matches, he faced off against Jaime Munguia, Jermel Charlo, John Ryder, and a Gennady Golovkin who was nearing retirement. If you don't fit the bill of being slightly past your prime, somewhat outmatched in size, or possess a predictable, one-dimensional style, then it seems you're not exactly what Canelo is looking for in his future bouts. He seems prepared to sacrifice the highest possible rewards, as long as he can still secure a significant reward with minimal risk. He's been crystal clear. David Benavidez, the kind of opponent he'd have eagerly embraced in his 20s, is wasting his breath with these call-outs. Though Alalshik might dangle a tempting financial offer to sway his opinion on Crawford, Alvarez has so far been firm in his stance, viewing a bout with someone of Crawford's size as a no-win situation for his reputation. This, despite the fact that Canelo didn't hesitate to challenge junior middleweight champ Charlo last year. PPV.com's Jim Lampley summed it up perfectly when speaking to boxing scene's Lance Pugmire this week. At the end of the day, it's up to Canelo. To me, Terence Crawford is the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. But Canelo is the #1 dollar-for-dollar fighter, which is most important. You've got what could be the sport's top performer, the sport's premier draw, and undeniably the most well-financed promoter in the game. Three powerhouse entities in their own right, all converging towards an intriguing clash of their paths. This convergence unfolds as Crawford gears up for his upcoming bout. Alalshik is set to debut his first American card, and Alvarez trains for a fight that Alalshik is poised to consume, metaphorically speaking. In boxing, Alvarez's mindset towards facing Crawford is not new. Everyone knows someone who is the ideal balance between risk and return in terms of job advancement and someone who isn't. As Crawford makes a push to entice Canelo into the ring, he remains resolutely disinterested in facing Jaron "Boots" Ennis. Ennis, the promising young boxer, sees a bout with Crawford as a crucial opportunity to elevate his career. Benavidez is desperate for a chance to take down Alvarez, yet he never appears to bring up David Morrell, who is competing on this Saturday's PPV show in Los Angeles. Everyone occupies a specific rung on the ladder, each one hesitant to jeopardize their position. People are constantly maneuvering around others, not out of fear or doubt in their own abilities, but because it simply doesn't fit with their personal goals and strategies.
Is this a stepping stone to your dream fight?
Never.
Okay.
Never. I don't look at fights as stepping stones because it's about now.
Yep.
I might not wake up tomorrow, so I don't never like to think ahead. My main focus is August 3rd. I'm not worried about Canelo. I'm not thinking about Canelo. I'm just focused on Israil Madrimov.
Alalshik has injected a fresh dynamic into boxing, challenging the long-standing tradition where fan-favorite bouts fail to materialize due to financial constraints. With the potential for Canelo to demand $200 million for a showdown with Crawford, the stakes have risen. If Canelo's demand turns out to be a bluff, Alalshik, equipped with seemingly limitless funds and a mission to reshape global perceptions of Saudi Arabia, might just have the means to expose it. However, you would think Alalshik wouldn't want to take the chance of having that bridge burn in a cinnamon-colored flame. Perhaps antagonism might be the solution. Alalshik's outburst over Canelo, daring to schedule a pay-per-view fight in Las Vegas the same weekend he traditionally does, may seem petty and ill-considered, but it might turn out to be a strategic move after all. Keep in mind that Alvarez no longer appears to be driven by the need for the biggest salary or by the desire to achieve glory. Perhaps the spark he needs to ignite his drive will be a blend of anger, resentment, and a fierce determination to defy the promoter who aims to devour him, alongside proving wrong those who claim he's avoiding the relatively smaller boxer. Power comes from money, and it's ego that leaves the wealthy and influential susceptible. At this point in his career, Terence Crawford's achievements warrant nothing less than complete transparency. During a recent conversation about his bout with Israil Madrimov, his camaraderie with Shakur Stevenson, and the possibility of a rematch with Errol Spence Jr., Crawford's candor was unmistakable. The conversation continued as he joined Ariel Helwani on the MMA show, delving into familiar themes. Central to the discussion was the pressing question of Crawford's next challenger after his bout with Madrimov. There are calls for him to challenge IBF champion Jaron "Boots" Ennis, a notion that the general public may have assumed far too hastily. The fighter from Philadelphia delivered a stunning TKO win against David Avanesian earlier this month. Since then, he and his promoter, Eddie Hearn, have been challenging Crawford for the past 6 months. Crawford has always been known for his fearless approach to boxing, never one to shy away from a challenge. Yet, at 36, he's signaled a preference for a showdown with the legendary Canelo Alvarez over a bout with the rising star, Ennis. A fight with Canelo would take place price at 168 pounds for Crawford. Crawford indicated that, considering his current situation, he was focused on pursuing the fight that made the most sense, and that was not against Boots. He mentioned that fighting Canelo would significantly enhance both his legacy and his bank account. Ultimately, Crawford expressed that when his boxing career was over, he wanted to be remembered for his legacy and have lasting financial security.
I'm looking at the fight that makes the most sense, and that's not Boots. Canelo is going to bring way more to my legacy, way more to my bank account, because at the end of the day, when boxing is done with, what will we have?
Mm-hmm.
I want to have a legacy that's something that people talk about for the ages. And not only that, I want to have a bank account that will last for ages as well. So
I don't blame you.
It is difficult to not appreciate and comprehend such a response. Crawford has accomplished everything in boxing to be unquestionably inducted into the Hall of Fame. Despite his continued ability to compete at a world-class level and challenge champions, he wisely calculates every risk he takes. He is likely to be the top contender against Ennis. Nevertheless, this is precisely the kind of bout where a once legendary champion could face a rapid decline. Such an erosion of greatness is not uncommon when a seasoned fighter like Crawford steps into the ring against an unbeaten rising star like Ennis. Crawford stands to earn a substantial sum for defeating Ennis, but it's a mere fraction of the fortune he could rake in from a bout with Canelo. There's a strong case to be made that Crawford and Canelo are the leading figures in boxing since the Mayweather era. Crawford's resume stands as one of the most illustrious in boxing history. Apart from his encounters with Mayweather and Dimitri Bivol, Canelo has remained an enigma, defying all challengers. Make sure to check out some of our other videos on the screen if you enjoyed this one.